You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison. Welcome to another episode of the SDSU Football Podcast. I am Andre Hagverdian, and I'm joined by Paul Garrison. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is our second episode. For those of you who missed the first episode, we highly recommend you go and check it out after you're done listening to this one. Episode 1 included interviews with 3 incoming freshmen for the class of 22, all 3 who are enrolling early for the spring semester. Definitely recommend you check it out. Some great insight from some new Aztecs. In this episode, Paul and I interviewed 2 defensive players, Segun Olubi and Sefo Mailangi, who were super seniors this past season for the 12-win Aztec team. And their time on the Mesa has ended, so it was really good to catch up with them, get some more insight into their Aztec careers and what may be next for them. Before we get into the interviews, Paul and I are going to talk about the Aztecs offense the last 2 seasons under offensive coordinator Jeff Hecklinski, and if the offense has made improvements over those 2 years and what we can look forward to in 2022. Paul, what are your thoughts on this topic to start it off?
Well, I mean, anytime you use the word better, that's a judgment call. And so I think you have to put it properly in the context of what better means. And when it comes to San Diego State's offense, I think understanding what better means, you have to go back to 2015, 2016, 2017, right? The Aztecs won back-to-back Mountain West titles. And then in 2017, after DJ Pumphrey graduates, the reins are handed to Rashad Penny. And the Aztecs offense looks really dynamic. It looks really good when those 2 tailbacks were primarily the ones carrying the ball. They scored in 2016 52 offensive touchdowns, 33 on the ground, 19 through the air. And in 2017, 46 touchdowns, 33 on the ground, 13 through the air. But then they hit a wall. 2018 shows up and they only score 30 touchdowns. They go from averaging in 2016 and 2017, they're over 250 yards a game on the ground, and it drops to 161. And they begin to question their offensive philosophy. The Aztecs are seeing that without a special back, their offense can't put up points. So they make the switch and they go to the spread. And the idea of moving to the spread, according to them at the time, was trying to make it simpler for their offensive linemen and their quarterback to read the defense. Defenses were stacking the box just like we saw it this year, but they also were bringing the house on any play action. And there was a lot of missed blocking assignments, wasn't a lot of time for the quarterbacks to throw, and they didn't take advantage of the coverage on the outside. So in simplifying it and taking the fullback out of the offense, putting, either that hybrid tight end out in the slot, multiple receivers, they wanted to take advantage of, if teams stack the box, could they take advantage of the one-on-one matchups on the outside, being in the shotgun versus being under center, all of these things. So the goal was, can the offense manufacture and produce the same level of points that they had when they had Pumphrey or Penny, when they didn't have someone so special? And if that is the definition of improvement, then I would suggest to you that in both categories, the offense absolutely is improving. They scored 42 touchdowns this year, 26 on the ground, 16 through the air. But I think especially towards the second half of the season, I think you saw the quarterbacks get comfortable enough to take advantage of this single coverage on the outside. And for the first time since they talked about it at the beginning time, they were able to make teams pay for stacking the box and stacking the run. So I think from those perspectives, better means, did they take advantage of what the defense was giving them? And second half of the season, they absolutely were.
Yeah, I mean, I would say looking back on some of the statistics for this past season, they rushed for 175 yards per game, which is 54th in FBS. But, the first 5 games of the season, they rushed for over 200 yards per game. I think they were in the top 10 at that point. And as the season progressed, whether it was, the play calling or whether they were facing better defensive game planning, stacking the box, that number came down. And it did force the passing game to have to be better. And as you said, the passing game was better over the last, 4 games, specifically the last 4 games of the season. So I think that was definitely an improvement. I mean, the team scored 27.4 points per game this season, which was 78th, which is kind of middle of the pack. It's not great, but it's not terrible as well. It was enough for them to win 12 games. So in that sense, the offense did enough things to win games, put points on the board to help the team.
Yeah, and no question. You bring up that 27.4 average, and that's up from 24.6 the year before, and 21.2 in 2019, and 20.62 in 2018. So they are improving. The question, I think, as they go into 2022, asking, were they able to improve their offense because they had another elite back in Greg Bell, right? The question was, if obviously, I mean, Rashad Penny right now, I think any playoff team would trade their starting running back for how he's playing right now. I mean, he is, I think, arguably the best running back in the NFL over the last 5 games of the season. And he was unbelievable. In fact, you'll see an article coming out soon, or an article that just came out, where Cade Bennett, who came into San Diego State last week, he was at the Arizona State game when Rashad Penny went wild. And that was kind of the first seed for him, thinking, man, San Diego State would be a cool place. And then here he was, last week committing. And the question is, did the offense improve, or was Greg Bell close enough to Rashad Penny, close enough to DJ Pumphrey that's the difference? And I think we're going to find out this upcoming year, one, how much those running backs have improved. And then also, I think we're going to find out whether or not teams are going to be forced to having to play them honest, right? We interviewed the head coach, part of the press conference for the head coach for the University of Texas, San Antonio. And following that game, he told us, the question that I asked him was about how surprised he was, how well the Aztecs passed the ball that game. And he said, the quarterback was really good, but we were geared up to stop the run. That's what we were trying to do. And I think that as long as teams do that, what we saw from Brookshire in the Boise State game, what we saw from Johnson in the UNLV game, and also against the Roadrunners, like we just talked about, is what needs to happen. And then, I think you start to wonder what happens when teams play them honestly. What happens when teams face a balanced Aztec attack and Chance Bell, Jordan Bird, Armstead, whoever else they have running the ball, what happens when they're getting the ball without a stacked box? What does that look like? Because we haven't seen that since I don't know when.
It's been a few years. Another interesting dynamic to think about, especially this past season in the offense, is San Diego State was one of the best teams in the country with minimizing mistakes, whether that's turnovers or, negative plays. They had 12 turnovers lost on the season in 14 games. That was tied for 15th in FBS. Only threw 5 interceptions, which was tied for 10th. They allowed less than 5 tackles for loss, which was 38th in the country. Those are great numbers. That gives your team the ability to not lose a game, right? But is that more of a product of the team playing it safe and not, trying to make plays down the field that could potentially become turnovers? Is that a play caller not trusting the offense, the quarterback? So that's an interesting dynamic to kind of dissect as the years go on to see how that number changes because as a team throws the ball more, right? If you're running the ball, and passing it a little bit, obviously your interceptions are going to be low, but is that a product of playing it too safe? Or is that just doing it, being really good at protecting the ball? So that's something, to dissect as the next season starts.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that there's a couple of clues about what some of that could be. I think, Greg Bell, what he does best, and in a balanced offense, he would get more opportunities to do, is he's amazing at cutback lanes. He's amazing at being able to get back to the other side and break a big play. And as the season went on, teams were very content to allow him to just hit the hole and get a few yards, and not allow him to have any of those cutback lanes. And I think in order to accomplish that, they just didn't bring a ton of pressure. They had to stay in their run lanes. They couldn't focus in on the QBs, which goes back to the point of saying that, like, these quarterbacks, they faced defenses that were geared to stopping the run. It should allow them to pass really well. And so it was good that they finally were able to get that going. I will say something that was interesting about just looking into the last few years and comparing the different offenses. San Diego State had that reputation of being a team that controlled the clock. And there was fear that as they moved more into the passing game, they would lose that ability to, just dominate the time of possession. And they've actually been better at time of possession in the last 2 years under Hecklinski than they were in 2016 than they were in 2017. And so that was a really interesting kind of eye-opening thing that, Hecklinski spoke to us about during spring ball, that they're still trying to keep the defense on the sideline. They're still trying to use the clock to the Aztecs' advantage. And as time goes on, be able to impose their will in the running game. They threw the ball 361 times, right? Which obviously doesn't include QB scrambles or things of that nature. And they rushed it 571 times. That discrepancy is not as big as it was in the Rashad Penny, those times, but it is definitely right in line with that philosophy of continuing to be a team that pounds the ball and also is more opportune in the passing game. So it was interesting. It was interesting how it worked. And then I think another component that is just hard to factor in is the Aztecs have a philosophy, and it'll be interesting to see if this is another something that continues, but they have a philosophy of just wanting to win the game that's in front of them. And that meant against teams like Hawaii, taking the air out of the ball, grinding out a win, hardly passing at all, and in a lot of the games that is what the Aztecs did. They just didn't have very many passing attempts. But then again, the flip side of it is other games, they led with the pass, and so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But again, my final idea about if the offense is improving is to, again, go back to why they said they were moving to the spread. And they absolutely are making it obvious for the quarterbacks and for the offensive line exactly what the opposing defenses are doing. It's very clear, and it's a pick your poison, and they pick their poison to stop the run. And then the second part is, if they're going to do that, you have to take advantage of one-on-one on the outside. Halfway through the season, they remembered that Jesse Matthews was on their team, and they really look like a much better passing team than they had at any other point. And so it'll be interesting, as we said, that taking that improvement, how they move that into the next year, with a new quarterback, with a new running back, and pieces along the offensive line and tight end.
Yeah, another aspect of the offense, you talked about the Donnell Pumphrey and the Rashad Penny days. Obviously those guys dominated on the ground, but those guys also caught a lot of passes in the passing game, made a lot of plays in the passing game, whether it was coming out of the backfield or, motioning out and lining up, in the slot and beating a linebacker or a safety. And, you're just not seeing much of that at all in the last 2 years. Just looking back at this past year, Jordan Byrd had 13 catches for only 76 yards. He's probably one of the fastest guys in the conference. Chance Bell only had 1 catch for 4 yards. Keegan Williams, I believe, had 7 catches for 70, and Greg Bell might have had a couple catches. Just not utilizing your running backs in the passing game, I think, was disappointing, because I think you've got talented players there that can take advantage of some of those one-on-ones against linebackers.
Yeah, I remember watching them in practice during the fall, and there was a play where Keegan Williams caught a 50-yard pass, diving right in front of number 20, the safety number 20, local kid from Helix. Yeah, Rashad Scott. Thank you. And it was the play of the entire day that we were there. And I think that in order to unlock the backs in the passing game, I think they're going to have to get vertical. Like, they can't just be swing passes. It can't just be screen game. It can't just be, short little passes. I think they're going to have to show to the defense that they're a threat to run by them, so they can't collapse on them when they do in fact throw it short. I think another really difficult part of getting the backs involved when you have only one back is that the Aztecs quarterbacks were not great apart from play action. So if you're going to fake the handoff to the back, he's going to get gobbled up at the line, and then that's going to take him out of the opportunity for that little dump off. But I agree with you. It seems like in college football and professional football, for that matter, being able to dump the ball off to the back and have the back get 5 or 6 yards or make one guy miss and pick up a first down, seems like every other team is able to do that. But that has not been a part of SDSU for the most part, right? I mean, we alluded earlier to that ASU game, and one of my favorite plays ever, Christian Chapman's able to dump it off to Rashad Penny, and it's a favorite play because that poor safety who was out in space with Rashad Penny, and it was just like, I mean, you and I could have done just as good as that safety, which means we couldn't have even come close to him, And so I think that they absolutely need to get that involved. And if they're going to continue to have those 2-back sets, they're going to need to have, Jordan Byrd be able to run like a receiver, run into the middle of the field, get deep, use that speed to stretch the field, to just make them play honest, because there was a bullseye on JB's back whenever he was in the game, and defense is keyed on him. And I think that really limited his production.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to discuss about the offense and improvements for next year, based, as the off season progresses and we get into spring camp. So a lot more to come there. Our first guest is linebacker Segun Olubi, who played 2 senior seasons at San Diego State. In the 2021 season, Segun played the will linebacker position, splitting snaps with Michael Shawcroft, totaling 53 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 10 quarterback hurries. Hi, Segun. Welcome to the SDSU Football Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on.
So you guys ended up finishing out your season in a historic, 12-win season for San Diego State. Can you kind of go back and give us the kind of your breakdown on how you ended up choosing to play at San Diego State?
Yeah, so basically I was leaving Harding and I was looking for basically the best opportunity to play Division I football near my home. And San Diego State is a perfect fit. That's a great defense to play in. You know what I mean? And those coaches gave me a chance. You know what I mean? Not every coach was looking at me. Those coaches, Coach Hoke and all those coaches gave me an opportunity. And so that's why I ended up going there.
Okay, well, so then you go like further than that, right? You become a team captain. Could you just like let us know how does the voting for that work, or how do they do that? I can't exactly imagine Coach Hoke sending out like a text message by Google form or something like that. So
Yeah.
how does the mechanics of you being chosen and appointed as a team captain?
Yeah, so basically, basically what we do is we vote as a team. So every player votes except for freshmen. If you're a freshman, they say that you haven't been there long enough to know guys, so freshmen can't vote. But all the players vote, and then all the coaches vote as well. And then they tally up the votes, and whoever gets the most votes, usually it's 2 offense and 2 defense. But me and Trent actually tied, so we ended up both being captains.
And so, I mean, what does that look like? Is there like a secret ballot box or something like that?
Oh, no,
How do they tell the votes?
We walk into a team meeting, and they have everybody's name on the board, the big board up there, and then they have ballots that just pass out ballots like select 2 offense, 2 defense for everybody selects 2 offense, 2 defense, and then you put that in, and then they count manually after the meeting.
Now, you were one of 5, as you just mentioned, because you and Trent tied. And, of course, like when you guys go out for the coin toss, you can only have 4 of you all out there. Mm-hmm. So the very first game, you had the shield, and you like led the team out of the tunnel. How did you get that one, and they got to go out into the field?
We just rotate. The coaches rotate. The strength staff, they decide who gets the shield. Usually it's a great honor to have that shield. I mean, there's been seasons where one guy has had it the whole year. There's been seasons where you make a big play, you get it. So yeah, that's a huge honor to do that. And so, yeah, we just talk about it before we go out there, who's going out, who's not.
So Kurt Maddox is the defensive coordinator at San Diego State. What was it like? What is he like as a coach to play for him, to study under him, to go about, playing the season under him?
It's special, because he's meticulous, So that's one of the things that I'll probably carry with me is just the level of detail that we're looking at scheme, and that we're looking at the offense with. There's a lot that goes into it. Definitely very locked in on small aspects of the game as far as footwork and technique. And that's something that I really appreciated. So it was cool. He's a goofy guy, sometimes you get him in a meeting room and all the other coaches can hear him because he's loud. He's goofy. He tells a lot of jokes in the meeting. And you can tell that he's emotional. He loves what he's doing because he's emotional. When we play bad and he's upset, you're going to know about it. You know what I mean? He might not necessarily be screaming and cussing everybody out, but he'll be a little more reserved. Or when things are going great, you'll see a huge smile on his face. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like that about him as well. You could tell that the passion was there.
Prior to San Diego State, how much familiarity did you have with the 3-3-5 defense, and was that difficult for you to get accustomed to, or was it fairly straightforward?
For me, because I came in and I was playing safety, right? And so I had been playing in 3 safety systems my entire time in college. So it was like that part of it was really easy. So, and then when I got moved to backer, I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? So I was used to playing with 3 backers at that point. 3 backers at that point. So yeah, it wasn't that huge of an adjustment because the 3-3-5 is the way we played it this year was very similar to a 4-2-5, which was the last 3 defense that I had played in. So it wasn't that huge of an adjustment as far as personnel and alignment.
Now, you just talked about playing more of a 4-2-5. Do you feel like that's like part of how Coach Maddox kind of calls it, or was that just based off of the fact that you had some elite rushers and you guys were going to be facing a lot of teams where you guys would be dropping into the zone, quick passes, things like that?
Yeah, so Kaden's real good at the line of scrimmage. He's real good at the line of scrimmage, elite pass rusher. Gives great effort down there. He's good at setting edges. So it wasn't a huge issue for us to be putting one or the other. It was better for me to be off the ball because I'm an ex-safety, you know what I mean? So basically, we would have him line up on the ball, and they would call it to where I was more in space and blitzing and things of that nature to well position in our defense. So things like that.
Yeah, and then, you guys, obviously, for the last 2 years, you didn't play in San Diego. Now that that's over with and, any ideas of like having an excuse or anything like that is kind of out of the way, How difficult was it the last 2 years not having a true home game?
It wasn't because you play road games too every year. You know what I mean? So every year you do play road games. So it was kind of like every game was a road game, but the coaches did a good job making sure that we were familiar and knew what to expect. And so like you would get there and it was not in San Diego, but it felt familiar. Everything felt like home. You know what I mean? Like we stayed in the same hotel. Half the time I stayed in the same room even, you know what I mean? And the stadium, we're familiar with the playing surface. We did scrimmages there, you know what I mean? So we had been playing there for 2 seasons at that point. So it was like a home away from home. It was very much a home away from home.
Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that the Aztecs won 12 games this year, something they had never done before. When you look back on the season, what's the one thing that stands out to you from the team, from the season in general?
Yes, the fact that we won 12 wins, but the fact that we didn't win 13 games, you know what I mean? that one game, I really wish we would have had that. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to go 14-0, but having the opportunity to play in the Mountain West Championship and win that game, that would have been the huge cherry on top. You know what I mean?
How, as a team, obviously that was a disappointing game, regardless of the circumstances. How was the team able to put that aside and focus on the Frisco Bowl? And because you guys played a really good opponent. Now that opponent might have had their own, circumstances with missing some guys. But how was the team able to kind of put that behind them and focus on the Frisco Bowl and go out and beat a really good team?
Main thing when you're coming off a loss like that is to just get that taste out of your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not hard to want to play really well the next game because the way you played the last game was just so beneath what you wanted to put out there. You know what I mean? So the motivation is there, the incentive is there. So it's mainly trying to make sure that those guys that aren't necessarily in that mindset are locked into that game plan and making sure that hey guys, we're moving on, we're moving forward. We're going to be locked in and we're going to make sure that we write that and finish this season with 12 wins.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of times, your experience playing safety. What are you thinking about as a position in the NFL? Are you thinking getting back into the secondary, weak side linebacker? What is it that's kind of you've heard about and you've thought about as you're preparing for that next step?
Yeah, so I'm very versatile, but basically every team that's coming to me that I'm hearing about is liking me at linebacker. And it's just mainly the fact that I can bring elite speed to that position, you know what I mean? Bring some explosion to that position. I can match up well with backs, tight ends, and things like that. So, and then I can get in on special teams. So playing in the secondary, I'm a bit big at times, you know what I mean? So I would have to slim down for that. And I mean, I could, but right now they're liking me at backer and I'm comfortable where I'm at. So
then what is it that, like, between, now and the draft, how are you able to, like, showcase yourself, and what are the events and that you're paying attention to?
So right now we're crossing our fingers, hoping to get a big bowl invite, you know what I mean, one of those nice all-star games. But right now I'm just combine training, hoping to wow some people with my combine numbers, you know what I mean. I'm real focused and locked in on that, and I'm controlling what I can control. I mean, anybody that wants to talk to me, I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna be honest. There's nothing really to hide. I've had an interesting, unique story, but nothing too crazy. And like I said, I'm locked in on the combine training. That's the real fun part about this.
Looking ahead to next year for the Aztecs, obviously you will not be part of the team. You have, future goals for professional football. Could you give us a scouting report on the Aztecs linebackers for 2022?
Yeah. So, in the room, we returned everybody except for me and Drew. So you're gonna have Cedric Laka will be there. Michael Shawcroft will still be there. Obviously, Kaden will still be there. And then we're looking for Vi to start adding some more minutes to his Vi Cahill. He'll start adding some minutes. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that the coaching staff beyond that will figure it out and be able to start divvying up who gets on the field and whatnot. But no, I'm not worried about our linebacker room at all. I think we're going to be pretty good next year.
Yeah, you mentioned Kaden Mcdonald, obviously. He decided to come back for his second senior year, which is something you did. What advice would you have for him as he starts that second senior year?
Just stay hungry. You know what I mean? When you come back to do a second senior year, it can kind of get monotonous. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of doing the same thing over again. I've seen that's what it's been like for him, being in the same place for so long. But you know what I mean? I don't think he'll have a problem just staying hungry, honestly. I think just stay the course, man. Just be hungry, attack every day. like how we've been attacking every day, and you know what I mean. Him and Garrett are gonna get together and work, and they're gonna make each other better. So,
is there one? I know a lot of the freshmen from this past season didn't get a lot of playing time in terms of kind of the linebacker. Is there anyone that Aztec fans should kind of keep an eye out for that, you know, didn't get any playing time, but that's someone that's going to, you know, become a great player over the next couple of years that we should think about?
Yeah, like I said, Vi. I really like Vi Cajo. You know, he's young, not necessarily a freshman, but actually, technically, he is a freshman. Yeah, I like his explosion, his passion for the game. I mean, the guy's a heat-seeking missile. So, you know, he's one of my favorite players. That's my little Toko right there. And then, you know, let's see. You know, there's a lot of freshmen. There's a lot of freshmen in that room that are trying to come up and trying to establish themselves. It was hard just because we were a very senior-heavy group. You know what I mean? Very established group. So a lot of those guys didn't get great opportunities. But I'm sure that they'll all be productive in the future. You know what I mean?
So you've been great, man. Transitioning away from football, you ready for some rapid fire questions?
No, but let's do it.
All right, favorite food?
Favorite food would be pande yam. It's pande yam and a goosey soup, actually. It's a Nigerian dish that I like the way my mom makes it the best, but you can get it at a lot of bukas and a lot of different things, delis, Nigerian delis.
Could you describe it a little bit?
Basically, they take the inside of a yam, a white yam, not like a sweet yam, but a white yam, and they pound it up, you know what I mean? And they make like a doughy substance with it. And then they have a goosey, which is basically seeds from a melon. And they'll put spinach in the soup, and they'll make a stew with it, and they'll kind of cook that, and then you kind of eat them together, you know what I mean? It's pretty good.
What about your favorite TV show or movie?
Favorite TV show or movie? Oh, I really, really, really liked Game of Thrones. I really liked Game of Thrones. I'm sad that it's over with, but I really like Game of Thrones.
And who are you pulling for?
I was pulling for Snow at the end. I was pulling for Snow at the end. I don't want to get too many spoilers if nobody's caught up, but yeah.
By this point, they better be caught up.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I thought he was too pretty. That's
you thought so?
I just thought he was too pretty. Like, I want, you know, a little bit more rugged. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
No, realistically, I was pulling for Ned. I was really pulling for Ned in the beginning. That one still hurts, you know. So.
How about a musical artist or group?
Let's see. Gunna just dropped, so we'll go with Gunna. Gunna just dropped the album.
What about professional athlete?
Professional LeBron James. That's a guy right there.
No doubt. What do you like about the King?
Consistency over a long span of time. I mean, he's been doing this dang near as long as I've been alive. You know what I mean? And he's top of his game. I don't know if there's anybody as athletic as him on this planet. So, yeah.
No, what about a hobby?
Hobby. I like to draw. And I do like to do yoga. I do enjoy yoga. What do you draw? Anything. Animals, football players, random stuff, warriors, anything I can get anything I really just feel like drawing. I really like aesthetic, like bodybuilding and stuff like that. So I like drawing like people, warriors, things like that. Very cool. Very cool. What was your major at State? Economics. Now, don't be humble now. You're a scholar. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Dean's List. Definitely. Yeah. Dean's List. Most of my semesters, BA and econ, graduated cum laude. You know what I mean? So then is the current inflation that we're seeing as a country, is that something that is temporary, or do you see that slowing down, or do you see that continuing as kind of like the new normal going forward? Eventually it should calm down, you know, looking at different business cycles. We are kind of overdue for a recession, so we'll look out for that to come up, you know what I mean? But yeah, it'll slow down eventually. The reason it's so high right now is that there's a lot of factors that's so high right now, but yeah, it'll slow down eventually. All right. And then one more econ question, man. When, you know, there's a lot of numbers that people try to look at to point to the health of the economy. What are the ones that you gravitate towards that seem to make sense for you? People really like GDP. People really like GDP, just measuring like how much we're making as a country and stuff like that. And then I like, it's kind of a weird one, but econ is a social science, so I like the welfare numbers and like the happiness numbers, or like you know what I mean? Because you measure happiness throughout countries. I like to look at like, yeah, people are making such XYZ money, but how happy are households? You know what I mean? That's one of the things I like to think about as well.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I like the idea of looking at the people who are kind of dropping out of searching for a job, if that makes any sense. Because that means that there's either a robust kind of like off the grid, under the table job market, or the safety net, as you alluded to, is kind of reaching the right people and they're able to make other decisions with what they're doing. Yeah, I put you on the spot with those econ questions because I knew you'd be able to bust them out, man. Thank you so much, dude. It was great.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having me, man.
For the record, I got my bachelor's degree in economics as well. So
really,
future podcast episode is going to be in economics 101, and we'll have Segun back for that as well. One last.
I still remember everything.
one last question is that, you know, when you were answering the favorite food question, you mentioned a Nigerian dish. For the Aztec fans that may not be aware, can you tell us about kind of your ethnic background, where your family's from, and things like that?
Yeah, so both my parents are from Nigeria. My father actually lives there right now. My mother lives here in California with me. But yeah, they're both from there. My mom did a lot of her schooling in England as well as Nigeria. She went to university in Nigeria, and then she came over here and went to University of Minnesota. And like I said, my father still lives over there. My aunties and uncles still live over there. Got some cousins that live in England. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Great. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the podcast. We definitely appreciate your time. We appreciate your years at San Diego State. Obviously, the team had a great season. Obviously, could have done better. You know, I know there's always that one what if game, but we definitely appreciate your time and chatting with us and letting us into a little bit of your preparing for the draft and things like that. So we appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on, man. Thank you.
Our next guest is defensive end Sefo Mailangi, who played 3 years at San Diego State. Despite limited opportunities in the 2021 season, Sefo registered 4.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and 3 quarterback hurries. Welcome, Sefo, and thank you for being a guest on the SDSU Football Podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Good, man. Good.
Sefo, you were born in San Diego, but you went to high school at Edison High in Huntington Beach. When did you move out of San Diego, and how did you end up in Huntington Beach?
So I was born here in San Diego, and then my mom decided to move out of San Diego just to get closer to her family. And so at first we moved to Laguna Beach, and then from there she actually wanted to get away from our family, so she moved to Oakland. And then from there, she just wanted me to grow up how she kind of grew up, because she's from the island of Tonga, or Kingdom of Tonga, and it's right next to Samoa. And so she wanted me to grow up the way she grew up, so she sent me over there for a couple years. And so I lived in Tonga for a couple years, and after that, I moved back, and she actually moved down in Huntington Beach with all my uncles and cousins and stuff. So when I moved back, she just was there, and so this is where we're gonna live. So I ended up in Huntington Beach.
So I mean, take me through that. I mean, you go and you move to the island. I mean, what was that like? I mean, with culture shock, or I mean, what you know?
Oh, total 360 culture shock. Like in Tonga, they don't really have freeways. You could pretty much walk the island in a day. That's how small the island is. But it was an experience that I definitely needed to know more of my culture, my Polynesian culture. And I did some crazy stuff as a kid out there. And I swam with whales. I was dirt biking, and this is when I was 10 years old. And I was doing all these crazy stuff that kids would want to do at the age. And I actually got to do it just in a different area.
So how old was your mom when she made that decision to send you back?
She had me in her early 30s. So this is probably when I was around 4 or 5. So she was probably 38, 39. So she was just saying, you know what, you need to get that experience. It kind of backfired on her, because she wanted me to live the way she lived. She lived in the village. She had to walk to school. She had cold showers. And it kind of backfired because I lived with my aunt, who ran a 5-star hotel, who gave me a hot shower in my own room. She gave me a taxi to and from school for like a taxi. So I was living pretty good, and it kind of backfired on my mom. So she was like, just come back home.
Okay, so then fast forward, man, you go out to Saddleback. But how did you end up in Saddleback?
To be honest, I was gonna be done with football after high school just because I wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I kind of in my mind was just, I'm done with football. Maybe I'll go try to play rugby. And my mom really pushed me to get at least my degree, my bachelor, my AA degree. If anything, I need a degree, and so she really pushed me on that. So we looked at the best junior colleges, and we both think that Saddleback was good, and I loved Saddleback.
And then going there, man. Why State?
Initially, Coach Hope just, I felt that love off rip when he immediately got to State. He knew the guys that he wanted to get, and he made sure that those guys were loved. During the recruiting weeks and stuff, he would constantly make trips to see me at Saddleback, and almost like an everyday thing just to make sure I'm okay. Everything's going good. And just immediately when I felt that love, when I came on my official visit, I met Coach Thomas and just some of the other coaches, and I really felt the love, and I really saw what they were trying to do here, and I really bought into it. And so after my official, I pretty much committed. I just loved the school. I loved the area. And then on top of that, just reminding that I was born here in San Diego, so why not make a full 360 and come back?
Nice.
Now, when you played on both sides of the ball. When you initially came to State, were you technically playing tight end and you moved to defensive line later in that season?
So originally I came in to play defensive and also on linebacker. And those first couple of weeks they didn't know where to put me because they also saw my film and also played tight end. So every day I was bouncing from offense to defense, trying to learn both things, trying to learn both positions. And then finally Coach Long, he pulled me into his office and said, hey, like, we want you to play tight end this year, like for this season. Could you do that for us? And I said, of course, I'll do anything for the team. And then once the season was over, Coach Hope told me that he was going to bring me back to the defensive line. And so I said, okay. So I pretty much, wherever they told me to play, I'll play, and I'll do the best of my ability.
You mentioned, obviously, Coach Hope and Coach Thomas in your recruiting. What is it like to play for both of those guys?
No, they're great coaches. Coach Hope really knows what he's talking about, and he gets you fired up every week. He makes sure the goal, that the whole team knows the goal. It's the mission, and we got to execute the mission. At times it did get hard, but that's what we needed at times. Like we got comfortable at times, and I really think that they brought the edge back to us. Definitely.
Okay, so this last year, obviously not a starter, playing behind some really talented defensive linemen. But in the time that you had in, man, 4.5 tackles for loss, 9 tackles in the year, you were very successful in like that attacking style. What do you think was your key to that success?
I mean, I had conversations with Cam almost every time we were during the games and stuff, and whether it's him going in or me going in, if I made a tackle or if he made a tackle, every time we came off the sideline, I'm like, just be a game changer. And that's one of the things that we told each other as a D-line, just be a game changer. No matter what the reps you got, be a game changer with what you can get. And so every time I try to get in, I try to make as many plays as possible. And I'd have him right there next to me saying, hey, be a game changer. And I said, that's you. And we just go back and forth with each other. And so that's just one thing, like on the D-line, we try to support each other. Someone who's good, then we're going to be right there behind his back supporting them. So no matter what the rep count is, someone's doing their job, we're going to support them.
Now, you were part of the senior leadership class twice, and you did the COVID year, right? And then of course the year in Carson, and then you do the second year in Carson. I mean, just as being part of that senior leadership group, how difficult was it these last 2 years, not just COVID, but also playing away from San Diego the last 2 seasons?
It was difficult because when I first got here playing Colcom, I believe we played there. I mean, that was just an unbelievable stadium. Like just seeing the fans, like all of San Diego, really getting to come watch us. That was something really dope. And when they told us we were gonna play in Carson. At first, we were like, why are we playing in Carson? But Coach Hoke really told us, like, no matter where we play at, even if we play at a high school field, like we got a mission. We're going for win 22, and so that was no matter where we played at, like that was on our goal. Yeah, it was a 2.5-hour bus ride, but we're there for a mission. So
now the team, you guys came off a historic, season, won 12 games for the first time. When you reflect back on what you guys accomplished, what stands out to you the most?
I think just one, the leadership coming from the year before. A lot of the guys that came back, I mean, we went 4-4 during that COVID year. And so they really told us that 4-4 is not good enough to win the conference championship. And so we took it as a senior leadership as, yeah, he's right. 4-4 is not good enough. We need to win every single game, but it goes by week. And so we really like emphasize it within us and then with the younger guys as well. Like, if you're not with us, like, then you're against us. So, and we really made sure like the young guys knew what the mission was, because even though they were new and they didn't really know how the system works, we made sure that they knew what we're all trying to do.
So, your time on the Mesa has ended. So what's next for you?
Well, right now I'm trying to see all my cards, all my playing options. I'm trying to see maybe going Division II if for another year just to get more film. Or if not, just try to do great on my pro day and try to hopefully a team would like to pick me up. And if football doesn't work out, I'm definitely going to go back to play rugby because I used to play rugby for 8 years. So I might go back to do that and see if I can go pro for that.
That led in perfectly to the next question. You played rugby for USA rugby team. You represented the boys high school All-American under-17 squad in France for a 2015 match. I mean, you weren't a rugby player. You were a rugby player, But so how did you get into rugby and how was that experience for you?
So it kind of started back on the island, really. I used to run track and field back in the island, and so my uncle was really funny. He's the head of the rugby coach over there, the rugby team over there, and he was like, "You should come play." And I was like, "What do I got to do?" And he's like, "Larry, just pick up the ball and run to the other side and run." And before then, like, I was a lot skinnier and faster, so I was like, "Oh, this is easy." And then when I came back to the U.S., I kind of grew into my body, and I'm like, "Okay, this is a little bit tough," but yeah, just playing rugby probably was one of the best experiences and still is one of the best experiences in my life. It brought me to places that I didn't really go. Like I said, to France, to Belgium. My senior year, we went to Canada. I went with another team to England. So it was just traveling a bunch of places. That's where rugby really brought me.
Okay, so you said that you grew into your body and you weren't quite as fast, man. But we put a clip out there on social media of you almost running down Jordan Bird on a kickoff against Utah. Can you take us back to that play? I mean, you've got to be one of the fastest defensive linemen out there, period.
Yeah, so on that play, I low-key missed my block. And the guy hit Jordan, and in my mind was like, oh, shoot, I just missed my block, so I better catch up and block the next guy. And so as I saw him running, I was just trying to look for someone to block, and I kept on looking, and there was no one there. And I was like, I might beat Jordan to the end zone.
I don't think he could have ever lived that down if you had beat him.
No, I told him every day, I think for the rest of the year, like, hey, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. He was like, in your dreams, Sefo.
So did you earn your degree from state?
Yes, I just got my degree this past semester, and then I will be walking in May.
That's awesome. What did you get your degree in?
Interdisciplinary studies.
What were any emphasis?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
All right. Last question from me. Could you give us a little bit of a scouting report on the Aztecs and the defensive line group? A lot of you all are leaving for 2022, and what maybe Aztecs fans can expect from that group going forward.
Yeah, this next upcoming group is going to be good. I mean, we got the young guys who already bought into what we need to do, and I already know there's a couple of transfers that State has picked up on. There's a defensive lineman from Tulsa. I can't remember his name, and he looks like a Dude, so I expect a lot of greatness coming out for this 100 team, this 100 San Diego State Aztec team. You know, they come out with a bang because they really emphasized on us last year being the 99th team. So this is the 100 team. So they're going to come out with a bang. I know that for sure. And I know every player that comes in, they're going to be bought into the system real quick, and they're going to know what to do and want to do it here.
Awesome.
The guy from Tulsa is Devin Lamp, who transferred.
Yeah. I had checked out his some of his highlights, and I was like, this dude's a dog. He's a straight dog. So San Diego State's they're after us leaving, they got good hands that's gonna be there. Because there's a couple guys coming back as well that I know. That's really gonna make an impact again. The same impact like Kaden McDonald. He made an impact last year, senior leadership, and I know he's gonna do the same thing again this upcoming year.
All right, you ready for some rapid fire non-football related questions?
Let's go.
All right, what's your favorite food?
Favorite food, sushi.
Okay. Any particular place in San Diego you like to get sushi?
There's this place called Kuchi Sushi. I think it's right next to like Costco or something. There's a long line, so that's how I know it's right next to Costco.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Ooh, favorite movie. I'm gonna have to go with the Black Panther. I actually got a Black Panther on my arm, so that's one of my favorite movies.
What's your favorite musical artist or group? What are you listening to right now?
Ooh, I listen to a lot, but right now it's really, really stuck in my head. I say Blast, and a little bit of Drake, Lil Baby. I don't know. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of like old school, so like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that's low-key what I've been just feeling lately.
Nice music that when Paul and I were children.
Oh yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, bro.
So, it's great music. You can never go great music.
Yeah. What about favorite professional athlete?
Ooh, my favorite professional athlete. I've always been a LeBron fan, but I would say my favorite athlete, I say Mike Tyson.
Why Mike Tyson?
Just because, like, he talks a lot of smack, but he can back up with it, and he's just one of those feared guys anywhere. And I don't know, just that mentality of just like, whenever he comes into when he was a boxer, every time he stepped into the ring, he was a menace, and I love that mentality, and that's why I try to bring that to football or rugby, is just have that mentality of being a dog. Like, no one's going to stop you.
And then last question, favorite hobby?
Ooh, favorite hobby. I am a gamer, but I also like to like go out and like hike. I like to go out and do outdoor activities, like go to K1 Speed or just hang out with my friends and just kind of enjoy the time that we have with each other, especially now.
Cool. Thanks, Sefo, for hopping on the podcast today. We definitely appreciate your time, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Okay, Paul, we got a chance to talk to Segun and Sefo. What are your main takeaways from talking to both of them?
Okay, the first thing is these two guys, being able to talk to them at length, right? Not just being able to get a soundbite here, a soundbite there, short answers at a press conference, but being able to just sit with these guys a little bit and get to know them is exactly why this podcast exists. And so grateful that both of those guys were willing to come on. And then, I mean, they were amazing, right? I mean, they were absolutely incredible. They did a terrific job in the interviews. And I think we got to learn more about them than we knew their entire time. And, Segun, starting with him, he's a team captain, and yet he's only been an Aztec for 2 years, right? And you look at the other people that he would walk onto the field with, and we knew them because they had been there for a long time. They were Aztecs, and for the opportunity to get to see how he's thinking about the professional ranks, how he is preparing for that. And then just to see his personality. I mean, he was just as adept at answering questions about economics as he was about explaining to us that, they didn't really run a 3.35 this year as much, and so I really appreciate that. With Sefo, it was just that life story. I mean, to go and to have to go live with your aunt who owns a hotel and being able to have your own room and all the things that kind of backfired on his mom. I thought that was great. His rugby history. But again, I mean, that's just the reason why this podcast exists, is because we want to be able to give that kind of voice to these players and to allow Aztec Nation to just deepen their fanhood, right? Deepen what they know, because, professional athletes, these things are known about them, but not always in the college ranks, and to have the opportunity to have these guys share their story was really cool.
Yeah. I saw that econ question you're going to ask Segun, and I thought to myself, like, is that such a good idea? Is this guy even going to be able to answer it? And not only did he answer it, you followed up with a second econ question, which he nailed as well. I thought I'd have to do some editing with some of those questions, but he nailed it. You could tell he paid attention in school, and based on some of the dean's list and honor roll things he got, obviously, for sure. One thing that stood out to me with Segun is also how he described kind of Coach Maddox. His level of detail, meticulousness when it comes to footwork and things like that, and also how goofy he is. I think there's a definite, hopefully, future podcast interview with Coach Maddox in there that I think will turn out really well, just based on the level of knowledge that he has. And I think talking to him at press conferences, you could tell he has a lot of knowledge, and I definitely will look forward to that. Just in terms for next year, I think, one guy we both, stood out to us in spring camp last year was Vi Cajo, linebacker. And that was the name Segun brought up in terms of, a guy stepping into a bigger role next year. Called him a heat-seeking missile. So I definitely look forward to Vi stepping into kind of that middle linebacker role next year and thriving, because I think we've seen the talent in practice and in scrimmages for sure.
Yeah, and I think adding to that, I mean, that linebacking group should be loaded next year. I mean, as Segun talked about Cedric Lakalaka coming back, pairing him with Michael Shawcroft, Vi Cajo, you mentioned, obviously Kaden McDonald's coming back. Garrett Fountain, he had 3 sacks this last year. He's coming back, and they're going to be able to be loaded at that position. I thought another idea that really stood out to me is with Sefo is just about his details about how good of a recruiter and a person Coach Hoke is, right? And, I still find some of the coaching staff and the stories that they are at this point in their careers, I find those really interesting. Jeff Horton and how he's the offensive coordinator. He gets the promotion to the associate head coach, but he does lose the offensive coordinator part, right? A lot of times coaches don't stick around when that happens. He not only sticks around, but he is an amazing, amazing ambassador for the program. Coach Hoke is with the Carolina Panthers, and he chooses to come back to San Diego State. And that's where that recruiting took place. And he called it, one of his most rewarding years in coaching. And so just that these coaches are in it for the right reason, and for Sefo to give us that insight into it. And, you can imagine, being Coach Thomas and seeing just a couple of years ago what Coach Hoke was doing in his recruiting and how he did that, and having that as a model. And I think that permeates through the entire coaching staff, because Brady Hoke's a great recruiter. He's one of the best recruiters in the country, and he's passionate about it. And I think we got a little bit of a glimpse of that, being able to encourage Sefo to come down from Saddleback.
Yeah, the last point from me is both of these guys we're talking about kind of pro aspirations. On the surface, you're probably looking at both of those guys, going undrafted and trying to get on a team as a free agent, making a roster and training camp. But I think both of those guys have shown the dedication to football just through the different stops they've had over their college career. And we definitely look forward to seeing, what happens with them, and seeing them potentially stick in the NFL or, whatever they pursue otherwise.
No, I agree. And I think there's going to be aspects for both of those guys when they do like their combine testing where they're going to be fast. They're going to be very fast. And being able to, I wish the Raiders were the old school Raiders, because they would scoop them up in the first round, being how fast they are, right? Just that speed that they have. And so I think that they're going to test well, and they're obviously great character guys, and it's going to be fun to watch over the next few months and see what those options are available. Obviously, you want them to be able to do whatever they want, but I'm kind of hoping Sefo goes into rugby. That would be a great story.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to do it for our episode of the SDSU Football Podcast. We want to thank our guests again, Segun Olubi and Sefo Mailangi. Thank you, listeners, for checking out this episode, and we'll look forward to the next one. You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison.